Hi, it's Candice with Grow Local again, and hasn't this just been a year of flexibility, creativity, and perseverance? Everybody's garden has been so different this year. Some are complaining that they're not getting any tomatoes, they're not ripening. Other people are saying that they're absolutely going crazy and they had a bumper crop. So I don't know how it's going with you, but in the long run, I hope your garden's working a little bit of its horticulture therapy magic on you. If you've been enjoying it and you want to extend your gardening, you can do that, and it's pretty easy out here. The best thing you can do is if you're growing carrots or beets, or you've got broccoli or some cabbages and you want to make sure that they're the overwintering kind and they're not going to freeze, you can just take about 4 to 6 inches of straw and you just mulch. You mulch right over the beet tops, right over the carrot tops. You just want to make sure that those shoulders aren't going to get nipped by frost. With your cabbages and the like, then you would just, in your lettuces, you can just stuff that straw in between each plant. Again, trying to keep it so that the roots don't freeze. That way, if you've got a really long row, you can go out and you can actually harvest your carrots and you can harvest your beets right through the winter season or until they run out. It's kind of fun, but one tip, if you're going to do it that way, make sure you got a marker stick of some sort, because if you've pulled up all your mulch and you've pulled up all these carrots and you put your mulch back to save your soil and stop it from eroding or blowing away, next time you come out to get carrots, you're going to go, oh, were they here? Was I this far along? So if you've got a stick, you'll know where you stopped, so you know where to start again. Just a little tip. One other thing that you can do is using a floating row cover. It also goes by a frost blanket, remay, there's a bunch of different names. It basically looks like this. And there are different weights, so that's what you want to look for. This one is the summer one. And it is called a floating row cover because it's so light that you typically put it on in the springtime. And as the vegetables grow, they just gently push it up. It's got no weight to it at all. This isn't what you want for the winter. This is more what you want. And this has been, I don't have my roll here, and this was given to me. It's a well-loved piece of remay. And this is the thickness that you're going to want. It's a lot harder to see through. And depending on how cold the winter gets, you can actually do 2 layers if you wanted, but out here we typically just need 1. And it's easy to apply. If you've got some sticks or some rebar or some pipes, you put that into the ground in your bed, 1 on each side. This I picked up, and it is actually water piping, a water pipe tube. And it's not very expensive. I paid between $1.50 and $1.99. I want to say $1.49, but I'm not positive. And it's flexible, it's bendable. And you just put that over one end. Swing it around to the other end. And that'll stay in for you. Then you're going to put your row cover over top of that, all right? There will be a link probably on the Grow Local website that'll show you how to make a really nice one. But I find that when you put the row cover on, you have to make sure that it's going to stay on. Where I am, I get lots and lots of wind, so I can either put bricks or rocks right along the edge. On here, you can use bulldog clips. There are fancy clips that you can buy, but bulldog clips work really well. And it's just going to hold it in place. And then you would string it along to your other piece. And there's no set limit on how far apart those need to be. Just make it workable. If 3 feet works more comfortably for you, do that. 4 feet's better. If it gets too long, then you might get the cloth a little bit saggy in the center. It still allows lots and lots of light to go through. It allows the water to go through. And it protects your veggies from the frost. It actually can keep the air underneath about 2 to 4 degrees warmer than the ambient temperature outside. And that, you could also use landscape pegs. pieces of wire. This is just an old coat hanger because I didn't have any. And you can actually just use that on the remay to keep it in. But I still like using the bricks. And that's about it. I'm not covering this because I'm not done with it yet. I am going to plant some more winter lettuce and some carrots in here. But right now, I left the corn in. This is the glass corn. I left it in. It wasn't doing anything, but I thought, hey, it's going to dry out. And then I've got some decorations for Halloween. So that's kind of why it was in here. But I did get a surprise. I've got a couple cobs. And I have had the hummers coming and eating the pollen like crazy. So it's just been a big benefit. The reason I haven't fully cleaned it out is because this is what a corn root looks like. It's fairly fibrous. There's a lot to it. You can see how tough these little corn toes are. Did you know they were called corn toes? I think that's so fun. Anyway, those are the corn toes. And if I pulled it out, then it would probably disturb the roots of my squashes that I've got. And I've still got some that are ripening, so I don't want to have that happen. So I just cut them off at ground level. When it's time to pull the squashes out, I'll get rid of the rest of this and finish planting. And then I will set up my row covers. If you've got concerns about, oh my, where am I going to find straw? Leaves can work, and you've got lots of time, you guys. You don't actually have to even worry about covering your winter vegetables until it gets to -5 degrees Celsius. Some of the tougher ones, like your cabbage and your broccoli, you wouldn't have to cover until -9 degrees Celsius. Last year we got a little bit cold, and I didn't cover my veggies at all. And they looked just so sad. They were covered with frost and they were drooping and they were falling over. And then the sun came out and they perked right up. One of them stayed a little bent, but you know what? They produced just as well. It was really fun to see. And that's it for using row covers. Thanks. Hi, it's Candice with Grow Local again. And I know I talked to you about doing the straw bale planting, and I don't know if you tried it this year or if you're interested in it and you're going to try it next year, but if you've a mind to, if you've already planted your bales, you can still get more use out of them by using them as a cold frame. Just drag them together, if you've got 4, to make a square. I'm just showing you with the 3. It's just easier to see what I'm talking about. But you would just line up your straw bales to make a nice square. And then if it's winter time and you've got other other plants that you know aren't going to overwinter very well, or they need the extra protection, like your new rosemary or your bass, a lot of times they need a bigger, more substantial root ball before they're going to be winter hardy and able to stay out in your garden all year. And typically, if you don't want roots to freeze, you need to have a pot that's at least 18 inches wide by about 18 inches deep, okay? And that's where this comes in really handy. I can put pots in that are a lot smaller. They've got to be some of the world's best insulators going. So if you had your 4 bales, you could put an old window frame across the top. You can put your remay across the top. If it's water that's going to concern you the most, because like with your Mediterranean herbs, like your oregano and your rosemary, it's usually the water that gets them more than the cold does. So you might want to put a piece of poly over the top. And again, if your plants are too tall, you can just use your infamous stick, put it in, put your pipe across the top, and use your remay, and you're making yourself a little hoop house, okay? Or you might just want to peg the remay straight across the top. It's really easy to do, and then it also gives you a little bit of a head start in the spring if you're going to replant these. All you have to remember to do is water them really well, add a whole lot of nitrogen, like blood meal and bone meal, to get these things going, to get them started, because there's not really any nutrients in the straw, but there's not any weeds either. So when you're mulching, mulch with straw, not with hay. Otherwise you're going to have all sorts of strange things growing up that you didn't want. And that's about it, you guys. If you have the 4 and you're using it as a cold frame in the springtime when it starts to warm up, if you take out the south-facing bale, oh, look at that, you just made yourself a little mini greenhouse, and you can get an even bigger start on some of your other groceries that you're going to be growing. I have a bag full of straw here. If you want the square to be bigger, You don't have to butt the ends up. Ah, it's heavier than I thought. You don't have to butt the ends up like this. You can have them the way I had them, and then just put your bags of leaves that you want to compost and use in your garden in the spring, okay, for leaf mold or leaf mulch. Now I'll say that's it. Thanks and bye. I have a straw bale back here, and I don't know if any of you have done straw bale plantings or even heard of it, but it's got a lot of uses and it can be a lot of fun. I did it several years ago, and it was a 2-year process, and I wanted to see if it worked, and it was, for me, highly successful. I had a plot along by a fence, and it had no soil. It was close to the highway, and I was given just this little hill strip. So what I did was I did the straw bale planting. It was the first time I tried it. And what you start out with is a straw bale that looks like this. And you put it so the strings are at the side, and you got all this stuff up here. And for a week and a half to 2 weeks, what you are gonna do is just water this guy. Get the hose out and just water it, water it, water it. It starts the decomposition and it heats up a lot. So if you weren't to do that for a week and a half to 2 weeks, anything you plant in there is just gonna cook because the temperature just gets way, way, way too high. There's no nutritional value in your straw. So when you are watering, add something high nitrogen. Blood meal, you can put in just regular all-purpose fertilizer, but do that almost every time that you water. When you're finished doing that, you've got a lot of options. You can either just pile some garden soil on the top. If you're putting something in from a pot, this will be loose enough that you can pull out pieces and you can put the soil in there and then pop your plant in. I did it over here. This is year number 2 on this bale, okay? And it doesn't look anywhere near as pretty. It's getting really loosey-goosey here, but it holds the water really well. I'm not sure what growing out here because they're volunteers, but I've got a couple of squashes, might be a zucchini, might be a squash. I've still got some peas that were going. A renegade sunflower, I'm gonna say thanks to the birds on that one. I've got some mojito mint, and I have nasturtiums. And I don't know if you guys have heard about nasturtiums, but this is a beautiful flower. I used to use it as a sacrificial plant, which is part of the reason why I put it in here. Typically, I get it covered in aphids, and when it's just chock-a-block full of aphids, I yank it out, throw it away, and the plants that I want to grow don't have any issues with them. But this year, no aphids to be found on my nasturtiums. And here's the neat thing. You can eat these guys. You can eat the blossoms. You can eat the leaves. You can eat the flower buds. They're kind of a peppery horseradish taste. The story I got, a woman sells these flowers, edible flowers, that's her business. And there's a sports group in Vancouver that used to get her to send them nasturtium blossoms for their barbecue every summer. So she just lovingly picked all these blossoms and she packaged them up nicely in all individual little packages so they wouldn't get wrecked. And one year they invited her to the barbecue. Well, imagine the look on her face when she gets there and discovers all of these pretty, pretty blossoms in a great big metal pan, just a great big metal bowl. Because the guys ate them on their hamburgers. And all they'd do is come by with their hamburger, grab a fistful of flowers, slam it on the burger, cover it up, and chow down. So from there on, she said she learned her lesson, and she just sent the flowers bulk after that. But the whole point is they are super, super tasty. They have all sorts of pretty colors in your salad. When they have finished blooming, I picked a couple of these guys off. But these are the seed pods. And I don't know if you've heard of it, but you can pickle these or just brine them. And if you go to the Grow Local site, there's going to be 2 recipes up there for you soon. But you just use the seed pods, and they refer to them as poor man's capers. So if you like capers on your salmon and salmon sandwiches, salmon on bagels, oh, that came out so harsh. You can make your own poor man's capers doing that. And they're really quite tasty. Or you can just leave them go to seed and you've got more for next year. And going on from that, we're going to take a walk over here. And I have taken out all of my garlic. It was a pretty good crop for me. I didn't plant as much as last year, but that's because I still have some left over from last year. This is that first one that I pulled out as a sample, and I put it back in the ground, and hey, it kept on growing. But it's been cured, and it's been cured quite well. So now all I'm going to do are snip off the roots, make sure that that soil's more or less brushed out of there, and then I'm going to cut it about there. I want a nice long stalk. It stops the moisture from leaving the bulb, so these are going to stay firmer longer. I think I mentioned it before where the ones that I had cut short started going soft about 2 months ago, and the ones that I've got the long necks on, I'm actually still using. This is one that didn't get pulled early, so you can see there is a little bit of a difference in the size, but they're both going to taste absolutely beautiful. I'm going to leave this one dry a little bit longer. As much as it looks really cured, it has been only maybe 2 days. It's just that the weather has been so crazy hot that it dried out a lot faster. Oh, good point. Some garlic, when you're drying it, can get sunburned. So maybe don't leave it in the direct sun. Mine stay in the sun just maybe for a couple of hours in the morning, and then it's all shaded and lots of good airflow. But that's just something to know about. And what now? So this is where I had the garlic, and I have taken it out. I've added a little bit of soil, but I'm not sure what kind of nutrients it's got in it. So I'm just going to add some of this. And this is the all-purpose fertilizer that you can use. So I don't have to worry about it leaching into the soil. It's going to be relatively slow releasing. It's going to be better for the soil in the long run. And I'll just churn up a little bit. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to sneak my way over here. I've got some Savoy cabbage. And yeah, I picked it up from the garden center. They're just starting to get their fall veggies in, so it's kind of nice to know. I do have some started from seed. I started some from seed, and I think I cooked it in the weather, so they didn't work for me. So I've replanted them, and I'm going to try again, but just to be on the safe side. I've got my Savoy cabbage. I'm only going to put 3 here. They do take up a fair amount of room, but I'm probably going to interplant it. I'm going to try a couple of kohlrabi, and I'm going to plant more carrots. So easy peasy, that's just tucking it in the soil and making sure that you really water it well for the first while. That's the kohlrabi. I can also plant Swiss chard still. And this is really pretty. If you've got flower beds and you want some Swiss chard, put it in your flower beds. It looks absolutely awesome. Nobody will ever know it's your groceries. And it's not too late to do your peas. If you want, go on the West Coast seeds. You can print off a chart. And this one is absolutely brilliant for this time of year. It's the fall and winter harvesting. And it tells me right now, August, I can transplant broccoli, Brussels sprouts. I can still direct sow my carrot seeds, chicory, cilantro, kale and collards, my kohlrabi. And it goes on like this. And then it's got wavy lines that says, hey, this is when I'm going to harvest them. So, and they also have it broken up into the winter harvest and next spring. This I'm excited about. I'm going to be, where I've got my potatoes right now, they'll be coming out. I've taken out all my peas, and I will be putting purple sprouting broccoli in there. We Love it. That's one of our faves. Grew it, grew it for the first time actually last year. I've eaten it before, but I'd never grown it. And so I tried it. I just went to the garden center and I just got 3 little plants because I wasn't sure how it was gonna go. And oh, we had wished we had done so much more. But this one shows you can do your purple sprouting broccoli. You can either start it indoors in June, you can direct sow it in the first half of August. You can transplant it if you go to the garden center and get some in September. And then it's gonna grow up to be what they refer to as a teenager. And when winter hits, it stalls out. It just stays a teenager, doesn't do a whole lot. But come springtime, when the weather warms up, that's when this stuff starts to grow. And all of a sudden you're getting spears all over the place. And it is such good eating. There's only 3 plants and we actually couldn't keep up with it. So we froze some. So how can you lose with something like that? What else can I talk about? Oh, I have left the dinosaur kale because I just wanted you to see how huge this thing can actually get. And it's really easy to take off the leaves. Dinosaur in your Slurpees. What do they call them? Smoothies, not Slurpees, smoothies. Ugh. Or you can make dinosaur chips, or there are all kinds of stir-fry recipes you can use it in. You can use it for soups. I've got a neighbor that comes and gets my kale, and she loves it. I've got carrots that are growing. We planted this just to show you how long it takes. But this was one of the first crops. Remember when we did the 2 buckets and then planted in the garden? That's about how long it takes for these guys to even reach this size. But I also planted some in a little short bed. I'm just gonna go run and grab one of those carrots because I wanna show you, if it works, what happens when you've got the wrong kind of soil. Okay, that didn't work. I have been pulling these out of the short bed, and yeah, some of them are kind of crooked and they're a little wonky. But the other ones that I pulled, the ground was really rocky underneath, and I had forked ones and I had double legs. You can get that from too much nitrogen in the soil, but I know this is because this is really rock and pebble filled soil. So hey, I got 3 more carrots. These, by the way, aren't insipid looking. That's the color. They're your yellow carrots. They're not the orange ones. You can also get purple carrots, and you can think it's a rainbow mix, which is kind of fun. And I have peppers. This is the fish pepper. It's just starting to get some blossoms on it. It was kind of buried by the tomatoes. I also have another little pepper, Thai pepper, in this pot. And you can see I've got more peppers coming off of this guy. This one's called a fish pepper, not because they look like little fish, although they kind of do at some point, but it's because it's a really popular pepper to use in Creole fish dishes. So they called it the fish pepper. Now, the tomatoes they're doing fine. I'm still getting lots of blooms. And I come out in the morning and I give them a shake because they are self-pollinating. But giving them a shake just helps them along. I've got lots and lots of bees. And I was looking to see, these are the black crim, and they're really, really weird shapes. And they're doing pretty good. Although I did have some, there was a section back here where I thought I was watering really well, and apparently I wasn't. And I ended up with blossom end rot. There it is. So this is where the flower was. And it's due to poor water uptake. So that means, and I know it now, when I was watering, the squash vines and the squash leaves were causing the water to pool off this way, and the whole center patch around this one tomato plant was bone dry. So I've smartened up. I make sure it's getting watered properly, and the tomatoes that are coming off now seem to be just fine. If you've got a nice round tomato and you've just got a little blossom end rot, you can usually just cut that off and eat the rest of the tomato if it doesn't bother you. You can also get wet, brown spots like that that are kind of wet looking. And that's actually sun scald. So that might be something to watch for if we get really hot weather for the next little while. You can alleviate it by just covering your plant during the hottest part of the day with a sheet or something just to give it a little bit of shade. But if you do get sun scalded tomatoes, just throw them out. They're just going to rot on you, okay? What else can I tell you about? My beans are doing well. Those are my pole beans. Those are the ones on the arch. And I'm actually starting to get little tiny beans on those. They're the ones that I'm going to let dry and use them in my soups and stews, and I just love them. One's Borlotti. The other one I think is a Taylor, but I'm not sure because they were just in a little jar that I was saving. So they're kind of a mystery one too. And other than that, it is a jungle in here. I know I showed you all those pumpkin blossoms. And all the little tendrils are grabbing onto the ground. But there's my start. I've got one big one. If you have a really wet area too, sometimes some people will say to lift that pumpkin and put it on some sort of a tray so it doesn't rot in the ground. I actually haven't had that problem, but maybe I've just been lucky. Who knows? Anyway, I think that might be it for the day. I'm picking peas like crazy. I've picked my peas like crazy. I've composted them. I've got more peas started. I've got nasturtium blossoms that I've been enjoying and trying to get every Tom, Dick, and Harry that walks down the street to try. My green beans are around the corn. I'm picking like crazy and eating like crazy. And my patty pan squashes, I've got 3 on the alley. Got 1 back here, and I've got 3 by the corn. So we are in patty pan heaven right now. And I hope your garden is doing really well this year, and I hope it's a little bit crazy on you too. Thanks and bye.